People, Deluded Guna here. A bittersweet story now. He was 20 years of age when he signed for Arsenal for an initial 8 million, I believe, rising all the way to 20. From the age of 16, he was chased by a lot of European sides, mainly the Spanish sides. He was talked about being someone of real potential. Could play on the left, could play on the right, could play through the middle. Like I said, he arrived at 20 years of age, but from the age of 16, talked about Antonio Reyes. Signed for a decent amount of money. He won the FA Cup and the Premier League, the double here. But yeah, it's somewhat bittersweet. He had technical quality, he had vision, he was very hot and cold. Some games you'd think he's rubbish, some games you'd think he's the best since sliced bread. He was someone that looked of real quality. I remember he put one lovely ball over the top to let Thierry Henry score a goal one time. He scored a couple important goals against Chelsea. I believe there was even one in the FA Cup. What else happened? A couple. He done a little bit of bits, to be honest with you. There was man. I can't think of any at the time, but he scored a couple little goals and did some important things for us. Oh, that's what I was trying to think of. During the unbeaten season, I remember rightly. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, he scored some important goals to keep that alive and pull us in positions when we weren't doing so well. I think it was that one against Portsmouth. So yeah, when we signed him, Chelsea and Liverpool well documented to be pursuing him, and yeah, many reasons as to why he ultimately didn't settle here. I mean, mainly he went from the relatively quiet life and way of life in Spain to England, London mainly. I mean, it would be hard for anyone, even people from the north of England, to come to London. It is a different way of life. So you can forgive him for being somewhat a culture shock. He was with his family, but they didn't settle. It's important to remember he's 20 years of age, and on top of that, from the age of 16, clearly had a major media following. Yes, you imagine if it happened now, so many experts would be claiming they know everything about him, and there weren't social media like that at the time. But he was well documented, and maybe it just got a bit too much for him. I remember rightly, I don't know if it was true, but there was rumors of he was prank called by a Spanish DJ of a radio station, in which he thought that it was a club official of someone, and he said he wants to go home. People at Arsenal conspiring against him. He doesn't like the weather. His family haven't settled. Yada yada yada. And ultimately, he left in '06, I believe. Swap deal with Real Madrid for Julio Baptista. My word, Baptista was crap, I believe, to be honest with you guys. But yeah, he's even scored some important goals for Real Madrid. I remember, those of you who remember Real Madrid TV, I remember watching that as a kid. He scored some important goals. They ultimately didn't make his move permanent. And yeah, after that, he just been at some numerous clubs. He's been at Seville, he's been at Atletico, he's been at some other clubs, and it just hasn't happened for him. And I think he's 33 years of age now. We should be looking at his career looking back at his career as someone that's done something of significance. And yeah, it just didn't happen, mainly because he struggled to settle. But I always tell you guys, to a degree, maybe that was just always how his career was always just meant to happen. Sometimes this is actually how a career is meant to happen, and it's the fan pressure, the media nonsense that hype these players and say they can do this. Sometimes these things just happen like this, and I guess we'll ultimately never know. I'm sure if we asked him himself, well, we can't, but he would tell us different reasons as to why it didn't happen. He said one thing that made up his mind as to leaving Arsenal. He was a bit undecided, but what reason that really helped him decide, and it makes me because Perez has mentioned this as well. The '06 final, he didn't really play a significant part in the game. He said that despite playing a more significant contribution in previous rounds, to not really be included, it just finally, on top of all the other reasons and the culture of England and things like that, just summed up him wanting to leave. I mean, and yeah, man, it just didn't happen. His best seasons, probably, in my opinion, probably like what, '04, '05, '04, '05. It's probably '03, '04, maybe '04, '05, just purely because I can remember him doing things of significance in my mind. A lot of nostalgia. But yeah, it was very bittersweet. You could say on one hand he was a flop. From a personal point of view, I wouldn't say, if I was him, I wouldn't say I was a failure, because I've come to England, I've won two big titles, and now I've gone off to Madrid, and I've won the league there. I didn't get to become a permanent fixture, and I definitely didn't have the career I wanted to, but I've been in the two biggest leagues, and won the competition. From an Arsenal point of view, of course, it's a failure. Like I said, he's well watched from 16. Then he moved to 20 years of age, coming to Arsenal. He could play everywhere. He had extreme technical quality. If he could have just added that consistency and things of that nature. One blank spot I do remember. It's nothing to do with him. It was mainly, those of you remember Argones, I hope I've said it right, the Spanish manager. He was caught up in an incident with Reyes, where he was caught saying something about "you're better than that black," blah blah blah, referring to Thierry Henry. So yeah, that's not really nothing. It's nothing to do with Reyes. He condemned it. But I just thought I'd mention it for those of you who don't know about that, and you can go and do your own research. But yeah, guys, I mean, bittersweet story, Reyes. To be honest, yeah, man, he's just ahead of his time. You imagine if that happened now. Well, it does happen now. This is his example. You can see it in football nowadays. It's almost at every club, every wonder kid and things of that nature. But guys, Deluded Goon, I'm signing out. Hope you've enjoyed that. Get in the comments, subscribe, like, ask some questions for the Q&A. I'm out.